brothers and my sisters.
Thank you, and Pete Seeger.
This is working?
Where's the tech guy when you need him? Is that good?
Hello? Is this working? Yeah? Okay. We're going to get started. Okay, shall I start? Hello. Welcome. Welcome to the 2024 William Sloane Coffin Jr. Peacemaker Awards. I'm Sylvia Rodriguez-Case, and I'm the board chair of Peace Action Fund of New York State. It is so wonderful. Thank you, thank you. It is so wonderful to see a full auditorium here. We're so excited. There's so much enthusiasm about this event. So this is the celebration of grassroots organizing for peace in 2024. And your support, all of your support, is so important to us. You are how we can continue to do what we do, and we're nothing without you. So we can't continue to do the work we're doing. I just want to quickly mention we have you allow us to have the most amazing staff. We have 3 people who work for us. Emily Rubino is our executive director. And she's amazing, right? I can see. And she leads PANIS, and she is the liaison to the peace community, and she also is involved in, she's the liaison to all of the other peace groups that we have, NIAC, Peace Action, but she's also very involved with, she's a board member of the International Peace Bureau, which is quite amazing. She's, I think, the youngest member. One of the youngest, okay. And you're going to see a lot of her because she's the MC tonight. Ashley Crowther is our communications director of operations and communications, and she does amazing work. She helps us operate, keep running very smoothly, and she also does amazing communications work for us. You've seen the graphics that she does for all these events, and she also sends out a weekly peace action alert to help keep everybody apprised of what's going on in the peace world and how you can take action for peace. Yes, Ashley. And Margaret Engel is our student and campaign coordinator, and she and Emily are responsible for the fact that we have 16 college chapters this coming fall, which is amazing, throughout New York State. And you will hear from her this evening too about the student program. And now I'd like to introduce Jim Anderson, our president of PANIS. He's going to do our land acknowledgement. Jim?
Right behind you.
Oh, you're being
Darling.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia, and again, welcome all. Well, as she said, my name is Jim Anderson. I'm the president of Peace Action New York State and the national co-chair of Peace Action. And I stand to bring a land acknowledgement. We are on the land of the Lenape, a people who not only care for the land, but care for one another. A people who at the time had all kinds of wildlife, all kinds of growth. They had what you would call a community. They were kind to each other and anyone who came into their community. They did not surrender the land or give it away. It was taken. And in the taking of the land, many lives were lost. And as we gather here today, we gather at a moment in history where the same thing is happening abroad. It is not enough just to look at the past, but to look at how the past relates to this present moment. The Lenape land was taken, and right now in Palestine, their lands are being taken. I pause so that can settle in. Because you know, when we hear a lot of land acknowledgments, it's a quick, oh, well, we stand on the land, or who, and we out of there. But sometimes we need to take the moment to feel what it was like to have your life taken from you, your land. We are fortunate, and we all are, the people who must make a better world. So in remembering the Lenape, let us remember we can do better as we live, and let us bring it to the cause of Gaza. Thank you. You see, I'm about to run away from the mic, but I also have the great honor of passing it off to our most illustrious, tough worker, very busy worker, but wonderful, and I'm glad that she is our leader, our executive director, Emily Rubino.
Great. Thank you so much, Sylvia, for that welcome, and Jim for that acknowledgement. Hello, everyone. If you didn't hear already, my name is Emily Rubino. I have the honor to be the executive director at the Peace Action Fund of New York State. And I, as Sylvia said, will be your MC this evening. So hopefully you won't get tired of me. We have an incredible program for you tonight at our 2024 William Sloane Coffin Jr. Peacemaker Awards. Before we get started, just a reminder, if you're here in person, please be mindful that friends are joining us via the live stream and refrain from any side conversations. If you could silence your cell phones or put them on vibrate, that would be great. Thank you, everyone. I see you taking your phones out. And also just a reminder that we have a pretty full house. So we encourage you to wear masks if you have them. We have extras by the check-in table if you'd like. Up on stage, we're not wearing them, so I know I'm being a little bit of a hypocrite in saying this, but when I'm off stage, I promise I'll be putting mine on as well. So without further ado, tonight's theme is grassroots organizing against war in 2024. With this theme, we want to uplift and honor the incredible work, energy, and resurgence of activism against war in the past year, especially highlighting the grassroots activism calling for a permanent and lasting ceasefire in Gaza, an end to occupation and apartheid, a restoration of funds to UNRWA, an end to arms and aid to Israel, and a refusal to enter into a wider regional war. For the past year, and for long before that, we at Peace Action Fund of New York State have watched in horror, despair, and rage as Israel's genocidal campaign in Gaza has spiraled with unfathomable death tolls and cruelty, with escalating violence in the West Bank, and with the widening threat of a larger regional war becoming more real every single day, especially right now in Lebanon. Can we please all take a moment of silence for all those who have been murdered by the ongoing violence, and to hold all of the grief, rage, and loss that we are holding in this room and with our global peace community? Thank you. As we continue to bear witness to ongoing war around the world amidst all the misinformation and propaganda, I'm so glad that tonight we can be together in community to uplift and honor Leslie Cagan and Professor Rashid Khalidi with our William Sloane Coffin Jr. Peacemaker Award, Stony Brook Peace Action with our Don Shaffer Student Peacemaker Award, and Charlie Mondracchia with our inaugural Holly McGuigan Peace with Justice Award. Each of these honorees have in their own ways been working to build, bolster, and inform a representative peace and justice movement from the ground up to enact real and much needed change. We know that grassroots organizing against war started well before 2024 and will need to continue long after. But it's important to recognize the hard work, resilience, and dedication of these incredible awardees who are doing their work at an unprecedented time of extreme repression and retaliation, especially against the pro-Palestinian movement and against the anti-war stances more broadly. This event is one of my favorite times of year because it gives us the opportunity to uplift, celebrate, and show gratitude to some of the wonderful people who impact our work, support our work, and pave the way for the future. I'm honored to help lead an organization that puts such a strong emphasis on learning from and with the next generation of peace activists through our student organizing program. And with that in mind, I'd love to invite our student and campaigns coordinator, Margaret Engel, up to the stage to talk a little bit more about our program.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Margaret Engel, and I'm the Student and Campaigns Coordinator for the Peace Action Fund of New York State. I have the privilege and honor of working with our 16 student chapters this semester who are part of our student organizing program. This year, a Peace Action presence has reached the far corners of New York State, from Long Island to New York City to Albany, Binghamton, Syracuse, Potsdam, Rochester, Buffalo, and beyond. I mean, come on. Since 2011, the program has uplifted student voices across the state as they organize around various peace issues. They engage with their campuses and communities in creative ways. Our student organizers wouldn't be able to do this critical work without the support of the PAFNIS community, and the program exists because of the Shaffer family's incredible generosity and commitment to peace. So tonight, we were hoping to be joined by Robert Shaffer to share a few words about the Don Shaffer Student Peacemaker Award, but unfortunately, he's sick and had to stay home instead. He wishes he could be here with us tonight in person, but he sent us this statement to read on his behalf.
These are Robert's words. I had planned to be able to be with you all tonight to present this award to the University of Stony Brook Peace Action Chapter for their outstanding work for peace, especially in Gaza in this difficult year. But a bout of COVID, thankfully mild so far, prevented me from being there in person. My father, Don Shaffer, who died 11 years ago, was a stalwart activist in and donated to the stalwart activist in and donor to Peace Action, both nationally and in New York State. And he challenged the organization years ago to devote resources to work on college campuses to help train the future generation of peace activists. Don was also a student peace activist at Brooklyn College in the late 1940s, along with my mother, who was then Doris Freed, a straight-A student who faced disciplinary probation for leading an unauthorized anti-draft demonstration on campus. Woo! My brothers and I are pleased that the Peace Action Fund of New York State is linking the activist legacy of our father with current student activism, and we congratulate the chapter leaders at Stony Brook who have earned this award. I would also like to offer my appreciation to Leslie Cagan and Professor Rashid Khalidi, whose activism and scholarship over decades has been so important to the peace movement. I hope to be able to attend the awards dinner in person next year. Sincerely, Robert Shaffer.
All of us here tonight know very well that the past year has been challenging for peace organizers around the world, but it's been especially difficult for student organizers. Violence, doxing, arrests, threats of suspension, and expulsion are just a few examples of the backlash students have faced standing up for peace in Gaza and elsewhere. But it hasn't deterred the students of Peace Action Fund of New York State, and the chapter awarded tonight faced these obstacles with tremendous courage. Stony Brook University Peace Action, led by Rex Alex and Madeleine Gaibor-Albon, served as leaders on campus in the pursuit of peace in Gaza. Through teach-ins, walkouts, multiple fundraisers for the Palestine Children's Relief Fund, and the building of an encampment that resulted in the arrest and threats of suspension and eviction of multiple students involved, SBU Peace Action engaged with their fellow students and faculty to not only care about what's happening to Palestinians, but to act as well. Now, I could stand here and speak for a really long time about the amazing work that Rex, Maddie, and the rest of the chapter accomplished last year, but instead, I think you should all hear from the chapter themselves. So, with that, I invite Stony Brook University Peace Action to the stage. Thank you so much for your hard work and commitment.
Good evening, everybody. I am here today filled with gratitude and humility as I accept the Don Shaffer Award on behalf of Stony Brook Peace Action. This recognition is not just for me. It is a testament to the collective efforts of our incredible team, dedicated members, and everyone who believes in the power of peace and justice. Growing up, I saw the drastic impacts of even the tiniest changes that happened around me. I saw dysfunction in the local government, income inequality, class-based struggles, and immigrant hardships. Coming to Stony Brook, I was lost on the trajectory of my life and what I could have done to play a role in reducing the struggles around me. I knew these struggles weren't localized, and after the Ukrainian war, I began immersing myself in the news more and more, realizing just how horrible the world could be. My heart felt heavy knowing the atrocities taking place, the suffering of men, women, and children, and I was not the only one. This is when I came across our founder, Rex Alex, a young, passionate individual who constantly seeks to stand up for what is right. Rex brought Peace Action to our school. He put in the legwork for us to be here today. Rex is not only an organizer, but a doer. He was one of the first people in the Palestinian encampments and protests. He was one of many arrested. In the face of authority, he did not back down for himself nor his peers. I later had the privilege of meeting those who would join me on the board. Electra Bavoli is a radiant and eloquent woman, driven by a deep desire to create meaningful change in our world. Her kindness and articulate nature will undoubtedly make her a powerful advocate for progress. Isabel Peralta is a spirited individual whose passion for change burns brightly within her. Outspoken and fierce, she possesses a unique ability to see beauty in everything, which inspires us all to embrace our creative potential. And last but certainly not least, we have Emma Higgins. With her organizational skills, gentle demeanor, and unwavering kindness, Emma is the glue that holds us together. We truly couldn't achieve our goals without her steady support and thoughtful guidance. Truthfully, I don't know what I was getting myself into when the invitation was extended to me. I didn't know how integral I could have been to enact change at a college club. However, I could not be more wrong. The outreach, events, protests, and teach-ins our club organized not only gave a voice to those disparaged around the world, but also allowed our Stony Brook community to come together to be part of that change. Peace Action isn't just our board or our members. Peace Action is the entire Stony Brook community, dedicated to eradicating the injustices around the world. Despite how young this chapter is, I am so proud of my e-board for making collective efforts to not only be the change that the world needs, but a beacon of hope for our campus. Thank you.
Sorry, quick photo op. Action! 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 Woo! Thank you so much, Margaret, for that wonderful speech, and Robert, for your remarks. I hope you're feeling okay if you're tuning in on the live stream. We hope you feel better. And congratulations once again to Stony Brook Peace Action. It's just so well deserved. Our next award is our inaugural Holly McGuigan Peace with Justice Award. Margaret, I'd like to turn it back to you to talk a little bit more about this award.
Thank you, Emily. Now, we are so excited to announce a brand new award so that we can continue to celebrate peace activists year after year. We were really lucky to meet Abdeen Jabara, who has so generously created the Holly McGuigan Peace with Justice Award in honor of the incredible life that his late wife led as a peace and women's rights activist. And the awardee was carefully selected this year by our new Leadership Council, which consists of alumni from the student organizing program who are still committed to peace advocacy and stay active members of the PAFNIS community. So now I invite Abdeen Jabara to come to the stage and speak about Holly McGuigan, the award, and its very first recipient, Charlie Mandrakia.
I was told I only had 2 minutes, so I'm going to be very short. Charlie, I can't tell you how happy I am that you are getting this award. I don't think a better person could have received it, and I thank the committee that selected you to receive it. And I am here speaking on behalf of my entire family, our daughter Miranda and her 2 sons and my son-in-law who are in the back, to tell you that we want not just to honor Holly McGuigan, but to honor all of the young people that over the past year have been on the campuses around the country, raising their voice and fighting the powers that be that are trying to silence them. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you so much. We honor you and hope that you will go forward and march forward with carrying again the banner of peace with action. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and good evening. My name is Charlie Mandrakia, and I am a first-year political science PhD student at Rockefeller College, part of the University at Albany. I am beyond honored to be standing here with all of you today and be the first recipient of the Holly McGuigan Peace with Justice Award. I would especially like to thank Margaret and Emily for everything they've done and the support that they've given me. Please, round of applause for Margaret and Emily. Finally, I'd like to thank my sister, Abby, for being here with me. She's awesome for that. I want to tell you a little bit about some of the organizing we've done in Siena. It's a brand new chapter. So just 2 years ago, I took on the role of campus organizer for Peace Action New York State at my undergraduate institution, Siena College. I was unsure what to expect and how to properly fulfill my duties, but I knew that I wanted to make a difference. Like anything else, it came with time. In the first few months as my role as campus organizer, I was able to hold some educational webinars, had speakers from the UN and grassroots nonprofit activist groups, and the chapter gained more support from administrators, and we were able to hold justice circles to promote campus sustainability. As I progressed in both the comfortability and understanding of the role, I was able to mobilize many community members to engage in efforts for relief in Gaza. The Siena community signed over 150 letters that were sent to Senator Schumer and Gillibrand, calling for a ceasefire, a halt to weapons sale to Israel, and de-escalation. In my final semester at Siena, we held 2 bake sales to fundraise for the Palestine Children's Relief Fund. The first bake sale was a success. With a goal in mind of about $200, we were beyond thrilled to see the first bake sale exceed $600 in just a 2-hour period on campus. I was incredibly relieved, not only because our goal was met and exceeded, but because it meant that it validated my wonderful choice to start baking at 11 p.m. the night before. It saved me also the incredible heartache of having to eat many baked goods the next week. That would have been a disaster. Would have been such a shame. But after our first bake sale, we immediately started planning for the next. We knew we were onto something, but we knew we had to scale production. We needed to make this a bigger event. In the second bake sale, baking was not just done by 2 members of the e-board at 11 p.m., but it was done by dedicated students, the entire e-board, along with dedicated professors and administrators as well, all pitched in at Siena. Let's be clear, I was still baking at an ungodly hour because of my poor time management, but that is besides the point. After 2 bake sales, our organized for Gaza, just 2 times we did the bake sale, we organized over probably hundreds of people to come and donated upwards of $3,000. Now the Siena chapter has a strong presence on Siena's campus, is run by 2 highly motivated and highly capable individuals, and Peace Action's goals and influence will be spread throughout the campus and hopefully throughout the broader region. I am very thankful for the Siena community, for the community of Peace Action New York State, and everyone who is supporting me that we were able to reach such a wonderful result. As an institution like Siena that prides itself in the promotion of peace, the community reflected that and understand that peace does not exist without justice. Without justice, there cannot be peace. The two are inextricably tied, both conceptually and in practice. We must remember this, that for society to progress, we must lift up those who are cast to the margins. And if we deeply care about peace, like Holly McGuigan, we must follow in her footsteps and act. We must act with passion, we must act with dedication, we must act in solidarity with people, and we must act quickly, because peace is not guaranteed, peace demands action. Thank you.
Sorry, we need the photo ops. And then maybe one with us in it. Thank you so much, Abdeen, for helping present that award, and congratulations again, Charlie. There is your speech. Great. Next, I'd like to invite up Professor Catherine Franke to present our first William Sloane Coffin Jr. Peacemaker Award.
Good evening. What an amazing assembly of the people I want to be in the company of tonight, each and every one of you. Fighting for peace is a constant struggle, but it's also about relationships. And it's about a deep and enduring commitment to the idea, the principle, the love of other human beings and human dignity. Leslie Cagan is that person. Leslie has been a friend, a mentor, an intimidating presence, and a towering figure in my entire political life in New York City and in other parts of the country over the last, well, many years. All right, Leslie. I don't think there's a progressive person alive today who wasn't organized or hasn't been organized by Leslie Cagan into some rally, peace walk, huge event in DC, flyering thing, right? All of it. She's mobilized truly millions of people to stand together to demand an end to the Vietnam War, to disarm and get rid of, dispose of, banish from the planet nuclear weapons, to protest wars that came later in Iraq, Afghanistan. We've stood shoulder to shoulder in those protests. And today, of course, to protest the just unthinkable violence in Gaza, the West Bank, and Lebanon. I have a graduate student, former graduate student, who is Palestinian, who after years was finally able to get a job this year. Very hard for Palestinian academics to get jobs. She got a job at the American University in Beirut. Classes just started. And I've been texting her, signaling her, how are you? And she has a 4-year-old son. Friday night, she texted me back, and she said, well, I just put Leo to bed. Leo is her son. He's terrified by the sonic booms. Some of you know about the sonic booms, not everybody, but the Israeli IDF is flying over Lebanon and elsewhere, creating sonic booms to scare the heck out of the people of Lebanon. And she said, I just put him to bed in his toy police costume with accompanying pager. I mean, the irony of being a child in this time and the violence that surrounds us. And today she wrote me and she said we had to evacuate our apartment last night with a backpack in the middle of the night. So, I'm so pleased that Emily asked us to have a moment of silence for those who've died in Gaza, in Lebanon, in the West Bank, but the people who survive are enduring just unthinkable levels of terror. And Leslie has shown up to fight a world that is saturated by unthinkable forms of terror since, I'm right out of the cradle? Not sure. The program says you've been organizing for 60 years, so that's, right out of the cradle, right? But what's amazing, among the many gifts that Leslie has given us, is not only a commitment to fighting war and the instruments of human torture and destruction and violence, but also has demonstrated in her organizing and in her own politics just an incredibly deep commitment to human dignity, to LGBTQ people. Women, people who can become pregnant, and the planet, because climate justice is itself a critically important issue about which Leslie has also thrown herself into. And until recently, she, of course, did all this work with her amazing partner, Melanie, who we miss so much. So let me end with this. In May of 1956, Martin Luther King was delivering a sermon in Montgomery, Alabama, the day before he was to go on trial for violating Alabama's anti-boycott law. And of course, he had been, among others, organizing the Montgomery bus boycott. And one of the things he said, and many of you are familiar with this quote, but it so typifies Leslie: peace is not simply the absence of conflict, but the existence of justice for all people. Now, Leslie, the title of that sermon was When Peace Becomes Obnoxious. Please welcome my incredibly obnoxious friend, mentor, Leslie Cagan.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, I hope everybody is donating with the same enthusiasm. I have some words on the paper here, but I am so moved to be here this evening. We all, I think we've all, I know, we have all been together at rallies and marches and conferences and teach-ins and fundraising events. Sometimes it's good to just pause and take a deep breath. So that's what I need to do right now, is take a deep breath. I feel so moved to be honored by Charlie's, alongside Charlie, the Stony Brook students, Rashid, and to have this in your company, to have this all happen with you all in the room. So thank you. Thank you all for coming here tonight. Thank you, Catherine. I don't know how you came up with all that, but thank you. It may have been a little overstated at some points, but that's okay, I'll take it. And of course, I want to thank Peace Action, who's not only for this award, but even more importantly, for literally decades of organizing that has played a central role in nurturing a peace and justice movement here in New York City, around the state, and throughout the country. Thank you for that. I also want to thank the people who are all too often not even mentioned. The countless folks who volunteer their time, their energy, their enthusiasm, and creativity to the work that I and others get acknowledged for. There are too many of you in the room tonight for me to call out each of your names, but you know who you are. With all my heart, I say thank you for every single thing you do every day. I could say a whole lot about Gaza and the West Bank and what the hell are they doing in Lebanon. But I'm not going to do that right now. Rashid and I are going to talk some, and I'm sure we'll get into that some more, and others have acknowledged that. I do want to say something else, though. Now, as best as I can tell, and this might be off by a year or two, but it's been 248 years since the creation of this thing, the United States of America. And in that time, this country has been at war for 228 of those years. 228 out of 248. This does not count the years before 1776 and the massacres committed in the name of creating this country. And it certainly doesn't account for the many, many, many times that our tax dollars have been used by our government to supply overtly and covertly military support for others at war. Let this sink in. For about 92% of this country's history, we have been engaged in wars. If we are ever going to stop the continuous cycle of war after war after war, we have to find a way to dig deeper, to unravel The structural forces, the economic, social, and cultural forces that over and over again bring this nation to war. I don't pretend to have the answers. Believe me, if I did, you would have heard it a long time ago. I don't have the answers. What I do know is that we cannot give up. I don't know. Some mornings, I'm sure this is true for everyone in the room. Some mornings I wake up and I say, okay, again, we have to get up. We have to make the phone calls. Some of us still make phone calls. We have to write the memos. We have to organize the activities. We have to do the fundraising. We have to do it all. But we cannot give up. I believe, and maybe this is the crazy part of me, but actually deep in my heart, I believe that we, together with people around the world, because this is a global struggle, it's not only our struggle, that we will find those answers, that we will find the way to create a world of peace and justice that is a lasting reality. It's not, we have to end the immediate current wars, but that's not enough. We have to find a way to completely change the landscape from the bottom up. And it's always from the bottom up. And that's what these awards tonight are all about and celebrate. So I am honored to be considered in the group that helps make that happen. And again, I thank you all for acknowledging what I consider my pretty small part in this massive amount of work that we all do. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Yes. Put that here for the picture.
Yeah, you gotta do the photo op. Thank you so much again. And congratulations to Leslie, just so incredibly well-deserved. Leslie is moving to the conversation area. We'll be getting to that shortly. But for now, I would like to invite up Reverend David Schilling to present the award to Professor Rashid Khalidi.
What an inspiring evening. It's just tremendous. And the youth that are a part of us who have just organized, just set a tone. We need to have moments of silence. We need a lot more moments of action. And it means faith community. It means all stakeholders. And what we need to do with the leaders in this country, of universities, that have really turned their back on the fundamentals of what education is. So we need to do a lot more. I've written some things. You changed my talk a little bit because it just, what a challenge. But I want to start with the fact that I had just a really extraordinary, life-changing privilege to work with the incomparable team of William Sloane Coffin and Cora Weiss at the Riverside Church disarmament program in the 1980s. It changed everything. And before I get to Rashid, which, listen, this is going to be about you, not just Cora and Bill. we really need to look at the many different ways in which people have tried really, really, really hard to change the narrative of 240 years of war. And when Bill and Cora got together at Riverside Church, put together the disarmament program in 1978, you were so prescient and you were so right on in the strategy. The first strategy and the nuclear arms race. And with the Reagan, deployment of cruise and Pershing missiles to the middle, to Europe, 5 European countries. And then all, the other piece, which was to not only end the nuclear arms race, but to stop the wars in Central America that were, again, our funds, in taxes to the Contra against the Nicaraguan government, et cetera, et cetera. And then the third goal that you set out was to take money from the military budget to fund human needs. Now that's still the agenda. And I think I almost feel like peace action, wouldn't quite have happened the same way without Bill and Cora. So we think of you and Peter. It's so wonderful to see you here. But that laid a foundation. And so when I became a part of the staff in the 80s, one of the things I did was to organize a 6-week course on U.S.-Soviet relations. But so much of that was all about U.S. and Soviet. I thought there should be, speakers that would talk about the impact of the Cold War on the Middle East, on Latin America, on Africa. And when I searched and got some recommendations, this one name kept coming up, Rashid Khalidi. And he was at the Wilson Center in Washington, D.C., and I called him, and he said, yes, he would come and speak. Then a little bit later, we were working on some of the details, and at the end of that call, Rashid said, I've been offered a job at Columbia University, and I'm looking for housing. I can't find it. And I knew that there was a family on the 17th floor at 560 Riverside where Jonathan and Elaine and I were living, and they were going to be leaving. So I told Rashid to call the housing office at Columbia, and they said, no, there's nothing available. But then they called you back, and they got that apartment. Why am I saying this? Because guess who lived right above them? William Sloane Coffin. And you got to know him as neighbor and as friend. So 40 years later, it's so important, Rashid, that you're getting the William Sloane Coffin Peacemaker Award this evening. And I believe, Cora, Bill would heartily approve of that decision. Bill Coffin, a powerful change maker for peace and justice, was larger than life in a really good, powerful way. Rashid, I think you also are larger than life. You're larger than life as a change maker through the books that you've read, and I think one required book throughout the U.S. and the world is the 100 Years War on Palestine, that has now been translated into 26 languages, which is really, really important. But also for your teaching and mentoring, your truth-telling, his endless press interviews and speeches, his role as advisors, in addition to many other actions. Rashid, your voice has been so consistent in advocating peace and justice for Palestinian people. But this voice is needed now more than ever, given the current serious crisis unfolding in the Middle East. So, Rashid, I admire you. I love you. I am fortunate to call you a dear friend. And it is truly an honor to present the 2024 William Sloane Coffin Peacemaker Award to you for your tireless, relentless, persistent, perceptive, and courageous quest for peace in the Middle East and beyond. So, do you want to come over here? I think we need to go over here.
Can I hop in really quick?
Sure. Sure, absolutely. Come. Oh, yeah, for sure. Another picture.
Sorry, I wanted you in one.
Right. A little closer. Is that good? Yeah, okay. Very nice. Got it? How was that blinking?
Well, I'm rarely at a loss for words, but I'm very touched by getting this award, and I want to thank the Peace Action Fund of New York. Bill Coffin was the chaplain of Yale University when I was a student there. And David's right, I got to know him as a neighbor and as a baseball fan in 1986 when the Mets won the pennant, as some of you may remember. He was a fanatic baseball fan. But I had known him since the 1960s for his work on peace with justice, for his work against racism, for his work against the war in Vietnam. And I was among the students who were involved in those activities as a student at Yale and elsewhere. And I just want to say that I have never felt humility and gratitude and respect as I have felt for the students this past year, who stood up for justice, for peace, and against war and genocide and barbarity. And it took me back to my days as a student troublemaker. We had the Black Panthers on trial in the New Haven courthouse. We had a huge anti-war takeover of the campus. And I recalled, and I'll never forget, that wise people like Bill Coffin and Dave Dellinger and others came to us, troublesome student activists, to give us their advice, and we ignored them completely. And I've had Catherine, my comrade in the front row here, and I and my colleagues have done everything we possibly could do, the kind of things that Bill did to support us and to advise us and to help us and to keep us on the right path. We tried to do the same thing with the students, and you know, they did awfully well anyway, but they didn't very much listen to us. And when my colleagues would complain about that, I'd say, we didn't listen back in the 60s to Dave Dellinger and Bill Coffin and the wise people who came to talk to us. And we did okay. I mean, we helped to stop the damn Vietnam War. We didn't end racism in the United States, but we put a dent in the campaign against the Black Panthers. So these students have done something, in my view, truly heroic. The young people at Stony Brook, the people on my campus, I've retired from Columbia, that campus, now a fortress, a police state. We have our own Stasi. It's called public safety. You can't get onto the campus if you don't have a Columbia ID without a 2-day advance notice. And I'm going to repeat something that I said at a rally in front of the closed gates of Columbia back in the spring, which is that the people who, for whatever reason, decided to shut down campuses, to arrest students, to kick them out of their dorms, to deprive them of a year of their education, to do nothing to protect them in the face of the things that we've heard about, the doxing and the incredible hatred that is spewing out of the corporate mass media, out of our politicians, and out of the university itself, I have to say. The official instances of the universities have taken a disgraceful role. those people will be long forgotten who decided on those repressive measures. And just as we remember the students who demonstrated against and helped to stop the Vietnam War, and demonstrated against and helped to stop the Iraq War, and demonstrated and helped to stop apartheid, we will remember these students as having been on the right side of history. So I humbly accept this award, but actually you guys gave out the right award earlier to the students at Stony Brook. I mean, these awards should be going to people like Leslie for lifelong achievements, but also to young people who are picking up the torch from our generation, from Cora's generation. So thank you very much. I very, very much appreciate this. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Professor Khalidi. He's joining Leslie in the conversation area, which means it's now time for me to bring up the moderator of tonight's conversation portion of the evening, Rex Alex, who was the co-organizer of last year's Stony Brook Peace Action chapter, back up to the stage. Come on up, Rex.
What a great evening it has been. Am I right? Yeah. I mean, the speeches have just been so inspiring. I'm getting goosebumps listening to both of them speak. Their words I'm going to keep with me for a very long time, honestly, for the rest of my life. I am now into, I think over 2 years with the Peace Action New York State. I started working with them when I was a junior in college. I'm past my undergrad now. And the theme for today's conversation is about grassroots organizing. And ever since I started working with Peace Action New York State, I've learned a lot about grassroots organizing. So many doors have opened up for me in this position. I had the great privilege of doing some solidarity work in Nicaragua and visiting the labor co-ops there and the grassroots medical clinics. Recently, I was in Japan, where I partook in the annual Peace March, commemorating the anniversary of the atomic bombings on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and we got to see real grassroots activism there from the organizers in Japan. And of course, all of last semester, I got to learn about grassroots activism through experience working with the students and organizing at Stony Brook. And today, I have the great privilege of learning from two incredible individuals who have dedicated their life to grassroots activism regarding peace and justice. And I'm really excited to learn about their experiences and their knowledge, and how we as young people especially can learn from them and improve in our own efforts. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's a pleasure to meet both of you guys. So with that said, I want to start off. I have a question for both of you. During her acceptance speech at the DNC, Vice President Kamala Harris ensured that she would maintain the U.S. military as, quote, the strongest and most lethal fighting force in the world. Former President Donald Trump boasted about spending $800 billion on the military during his acceptance speech at the RNC. So in a country where the political establishment, backed by the weapons industry lobbyists, is dogmatically committed to bolstering institutions of violence and war, I think it's safe to say that the cards are stacked against the peace movement. Under these conditions, what strategies should peace activists utilize or engage in to advance the cause for peace and human rights?
That's an easy question. Do you want me to start, Leslie? Sure. Yeah, good luck. Well, the first thing is educate, educate, educate. Organize, organize, organize. The degree of ignorance which allows our rulers to wage these wars, this 220 years of wars, is part of the problem. We have to educate about Palestine. We have to educate about all of these wars that the United States is a part of. We're a part of this war now. The 80 bombs that were dropped on Beirut, destroying 4 entire apartment buildings, were American bombs. A U.S. senator mentioned that, who's on the Armed Services Committee. He should know. Well, we have to educate. We have to educate that this lie of human shields, this disgraceful, deceitful, disgusting lie, means we can kill hundreds of civilians to kill whoever it is they want to kill. We have to educate about international humanitarian law, about the specificities of some of these struggles, and we have to organize. And I have to say, I mean, what I said before, I would repeat. The experience that I witnessed that was taking place on college campuses is proof that it can have an enormous effect. It's hard to maintain that momentum. I understand. People get discouraged. I'm discouraged. We're all discouraged. It can be depressing at times. But you have to remember, it took years to end the Vietnam War. It took years to end the Iraq War. It took years to end apartheid. And you just have to keep pushing. So I think that, organize, take a long view, and understand that these things don't change overnight. That's very hard when you're 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. When you're my age, you realize it really takes a long time. So that's the beginning of an answer.
Thank you. I certainly agree with that. And let me go a step or two further. I think in the educational piece of that work, which is critically important, and I don't care how old you are or how many years you've been doing this, there's still more to learn. It's a constant process. But we have to learn, and we have to learn and then figure out how to talk to other people about the deep connections. Why? Who is profiting from these wars, right? Somebody's making a whole lot of money, right? And where is that money going? It's not coming back in taxes that they're not paying, right? So we have to talk not only about the foreign policies and the war and the militarism, and who the hell talks about being proud of having the most lethal military might in the world? I mean, that's like way off. But we also have to talk about and learn more about the forces at play. It was Dwight D. Eisenhower, no lefty radical, right, who taught us about, who first coined the term, the military-industrial complex. It is real. That's not a fantasy, and we have to really shine a light on that. And we have to name names, right? We have to name corporate names and individual names. And I think that's one piece of the work we need to do. The other piece that the peace movement needs to do, and I know over many years we have tried, and sometimes the resistance to doing what I'm about to say comes from other players. But we have to continue to struggle to help people understand, and again, help us ourselves understand more deeply, how integral, how core the connections are in the fight for justice, the fight for freedom, for equity, dare I say it, for liberation, is the struggle for peace. It's not just a rhetorical connection. It's practical reality that has to be exposed. And our job is to connect not just theoretically the issues, but perhaps even more importantly, to connect the people that are struggling in those different arenas. And when we bring the people together, we begin to understand at a whole other level what is going on. And then we build the tactics and the very practical details of organizing together with that range of communities that have to be in the room, in the process with each other. And we have to break down the silos that unfortunately still exist in the broader social change movement in this country, let alone on a global scale.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. Those were incredibly insightful answers, so much for me to reflect on and think about further. You both talked a little bit about education and the role that plays in the peace movement. You know, a difficulty that I've encountered trying to educate people, especially on Palestine, is that I just encounter tons of misconceptions and oftentimes just straight up racism from a lot of people who might be, you know, anti-Palestinian or just, you know, highly in favor of Israel. And that kind of leads me to my next question for Professor Khalidi. In your book, The 100 Years War on Palestine, you write extensively about how the policies of Western powers, especially the U.S., contribute to the colonization of Palestine. Do you believe that anti-Arab racism or some forms of Orientalism play a role in justifying these Western policies regarding Palestine? And if so, how can we as anti-racist activists in the West, how can we combat those kind of sentiments?
Yeah, the easy part of your question is the first part. Does racism contribute? Of course it does. I mean, you can go back to Lord Balfour. You can go back to any level of Western support for what was originally self-described as a colonizing movement. And the colonized were treated like the colonized have been treated everywhere across the earth by the colonizer. So that was and is certainly central to the problem. And it's sad to say it, but I think racism is a part of the problem today. I think the attitude towards certain lives is entirely different than the attitude towards other lives. Any child dying is obviously a tragedy, but somehow the deaths of thousands and thousands and thousands of children in Gaza doesn't merit the kind of sympathy that the deaths of Israeli children merits in the mass media, among our politicians. There can be no other explanation for that than rank, naked racism. And I think we have to call that out, obviously. And that's not an easy thing to do, because it's often embedded in the people that we have to interact with. I mean, I'm thinking of students having to deal with other students. I'm thinking of those of us who are faculty members dealing with other faculty members. But it's true in dealing with the general public. It's very, very hard to point out that what you're saying is racist. To say these people should have rights and these people should not. These people have to live penned up and these people not. These people can be moved by the hundreds of thousands. Today, they told the people of Bujr Barajni, Had Tahrik, Laylati, and a fourth neighborhood, in one of which my mother lived, in Beirut, that they have to leave because they're going to bomb it. And then they'll say, if they didn't leave, well, we warned them. A million people have already been forced to move in Lebanon, in addition to the 2 million people forced to move again. Now, that you can regard this with equanimity, as the mainstream media does, as that despicable rag the New York Times does, is only explicable in terms of racism. You force 80 or 100,000 Israelis from their homes on the border with Lebanon. You force 80 or 100,000 Israelis from their homes along the Gaza envelope, so-called. And this is a major tragedy, individuated in the New York Times, in the mass media. It is a tragedy. It is an individual tragedy. It deserves to be treated as such. But 8 times as many Palestinians in Gaza have been moved. In 1 week, 1 million people have been forced to leave their homes in Lebanon. I haven't seen much mention of that by a politician. The fact that our bombs are being dropped as I speak all over Lebanon and obviously in Gaza, and nobody says anything about that. I have to say, it's not just racism, but there's a deep root of racism in the middle of it, and how we have to call it out. It's a very hard thing to do.
Just to add to that too, it's not only that several million people in Gaza have been forced to leave their homes. They don't have homes to go back to, right? What they have done to Gaza is it's unimaginable and unacceptable, and yet it happens, right? And I totally agree with you that the racial dynamic here, the racism that is so core to the ability to carry this out has to be named. Another thing that has to be named here is that the Israeli government is largely still claiming that all of this is in the name of safety for the Jewish people. First of all, this doesn't make any Jew anywhere in the world any safer. That's one thing that needs to be confronted. But to use the history of the Jewish people who have been on the receiving end of horrific treatment and genocide, to use that history to corrupt that history as a way to defend the genocide of the Palestinian people is just simply not acceptable. You know, back in November, I think it was, when people started to call what the Israeli government was doing in Gaza a genocide, and other people saying, no, it's not a genocide, it's not a genocide. I looked it up. I thought I knew what the definition of genocide was, but I wanted to be sure. So I looked it up in the dictionary, and I looked it up on the UN website and the UN format. It is, I was going to say a bad word, it is a genocide, right?
Genocide is a bad word. Go ahead.
Genocide, it's a fucking genocide. It is, and again, the racism there and the racism of our own government in not just saying, okay, do whatever you want, but providing so much military power, right? These 2,000-pound bombs and the money and the money and the money and the diplomatic cover. It's just unconscionable, but on some level, not a total surprise, because the racism in this country, it's in the DNA of how this country has been built, right? And if we, as peace and anti-war activists, don't speak out boldly and creatively against racism and challenge the core racism of so much of what life in this country is about, we're going to miss the mark, right? It is central to any struggle for peace and for justice for people worldwide.
I think you guys have done a great job underscoring the importance of the anti-racist movement and how it's so inherently connected to the peace movement, that they both help each other, and that you need both in order to make progress. So on the topic of that intersection of movements, Leslie, I wanted to ask you a question. You're involved in advocacy around various causes related to peace and justice, including the climate justice movement, the LGBTQ liberation movement, the feminist movement, the peace movement, and the anti-capitalist movement, just to name a few. So how do you think all of these causes are connected to each other? And can you speak on the importance of inter-movement solidarity?
Okay, so I assume we have a few 6-7 hours ahead of us here. It is, I think, let me just start by saying, I've seen in the last, I don't know how many years, maybe decade or so, an incredible jump in the understanding and the consciousness about these issues being related, these struggles, these systems of oppression being intermingled, right, and impacting each other. So we understand, and especially among young people, I see this. I think there is an understanding of people talk about racial capitalism, for instance, not just about capitalism, right? And I think people understand more and more about gender and the dynamic of gender and the role of misogyny. That is, in case anybody doesn't know, misogyny is women hating. Hating, right? That a key word there, which is having quite a rejuvenation in this country right now. And sexuality and a whole bunch of other critically important issues that define who we are. We are, as each of us as an individual is complex, right? We're not one thing. I'm not only a woman, right? I'm a white woman. I'm not only a white woman, I'm an older white woman, in case you didn't know. Sorry. I'm a lesbian, right? I'm a whole bunch of things, right? So it's not that hard, I think, to assume or to believe or to hope that we can talk about communities of people understanding the multi-layered nature of our lives, because we live those lives every day. They're complex. And we have the theory, the theoretical, the analytical stuff is critically important. And we have to find a way to transfer that, to translate that into programmatic work. And that's where we fall short over and over again. And it's not only the peace movement that falls short, it's all our social movements fall short of making those connections on a very practical level. And again, as I said before, I don't have the plan for how to make all that happen. No one person does. It's got to come from the bottom up. It's got to come from communities of people struggling with each other. And sometimes struggling with each other means struggling through our differences. And we have to not be afraid of having differences. It's okay to disagree. What's not okay is to beat each other up because we disagree.
Professor Khalidi, I wanted to rope you into this conversation too. The movement for Palestinian liberation has been undoubtedly diverse and intersectional. From, you were witness to the encampment at Columbia, one of the epicenters of the student movement last semester that inspired, me and my friends to start an encampment at Stony Brook too. How do you think that intersectionality and diversity strengthened the movement?
It didn't strengthen the movement. It was the movement. Because when the university shut down JVP and SJP, Jewish Voices for Peace, Students for Justice in Palestine, 80 other student groups representing literally the entire intersectionality of everything we've talked about stepped in their stead and formed Columbia University Apartheid Divest. And they deserve all the applause you can give them. And that was a representative of literally almost every single group on campus, every single cause on campus, and everything that Leslie has just talked about. Every single thing Leslie has just talked about. And other things, all of which people saw were related to liberation in Palestine, peace in the Middle East, and an end to these horrors that we're witnessing every day. So, I mean, it came from the bottom up, exactly as you said. Nobody planned this. They were all, there were MA students, there were undergraduates, there were a few PhD students. We, the faculty, had absolutely nothing to do with it. I'm not saying this so I'm not prosecuted. I'm saying it because this is the truth. The students did it on their own. And all the credit goes to them. And if they made mistakes, they made mistakes because you make mistakes when you're trying to do something, when you're involved in the action part of peace action. And that's normal and it's healthy. So I mean, I really think that was the secret to the success of what became a global movement. And it's why it recruited such a wide variety of people. And I saw that with, in my neighborhood, not just on campus. Union members would come up to me. People who had experienced British colonialism elsewhere would come up to me. And they'd say, we support what you guys are doing. Not because they were Palestinian, but because they saw that their struggle was related to the struggle in Palestine. So I think it's absolutely essential. In fact, if that's not the basis of what we do, there's no way to succeed on a narrow sectional chauvinistic basis. You can't possibly change the course of events in this country vis-a-vis Palestine. It's impossible. We haven't changed it yet. But we actually have public opinion on our side. Every single poll shows that the president's policies on Palestine are unpopular. Large majorities want arms sales to stop to Israel. Large majorities, not just Democrats, all over the country. That means that this thing has worked on a popular level. The problem, of course, is the elites, the people who are making a fortune on arms, the people who own the universities. I mean, it's been revealed, if anybody didn't realize it, that faculty and students count for absolutely nothing in universities. 2/3 of the arts and science faculty voted no confidence in the president. She stuck around and messed things up for another 6 months before she finally resigned. Overwhelming majorities of students voted for divestment in 2020. Columbia and Barnard and many other campuses. Did the boards of trustees of any of those universities pay attention? Of course not. So the people who own these universities, and the people who own the mass media, and who own our politicians, I would call them prostitutes, but I don't want to dishonor sex workers. They're pimps.
Okay, we are coming to the end of, I wish we could have this conversation all night long. I have so much to say. But we're coming to the end here, so I didn't want to leave without asking you guys one more question. When I was in Japan for the World Conference Against Nuclear Weapons, I was part of a youth forum where we took questions from young Japanese students. And the last question that I got there was a Japanese student asking me and the other panelists, how do we deal with despair? You know, I feel like despair is an inevitable experience when you're advocating for human rights. Because we live in a world where people don't care about human rights, and that's something we have to come to terms with and learn to combat. So I wanted to ask you guys to pass along that same question. In your line of work, what are some moments where you've come across despair, and how do you overcome?
Okay. Yeah, I'll try. One of the things that I think gets forgotten sometimes in our own movement history, one of the contributions of the earlier stages of this second wave of feminism was that we shouldn't deny our feelings, whether we are happy or we are sad, whether we are angry, whether we are joyous, whether we are feeling despair. All the feelings are part, again, of who we are. And connecting to other human beings means that we have to honor their feelings also. Again, we don't have to have the same feelings, but we do need to recognize and encourage people to be in touch with their feelings and to express them. The challenge is to express them in a useful way, in a creative way, in a way that helps promote not only connections between people, but actually changes in policy, changes in reality. We want to change reality. And so if we deny our own feelings, we're going to miss the boat, right? We're going to be totally in our heads and the theory. And the theory you can start to go in circles with the theory. I'm all for theory, please don't get me wrong. I'm all for theory and analytical work, and we need to do that more rigorously. But if we only do that, then we're missing the boat again in that human connection, which is vital to any social change movement. I think it's vital to any human experience, actually. So I feel despair. And I feel it more maybe because of how long I've been doing this. And there have been moments in my own life, and many of you in the room, I think, probably share this, where we actually made a difference. We didn't change the world, but we helped move the needle. We helped make some people's lives a little bit better, and some people's lives a whole lot better, right? There was a time when I couldn't get up in a crowd like this and say, I'm a lesbian, and everybody would applaud. And so we were making a difference. In the last 10 years or so, in the last 9 years, and I actually point to a particular moment when Donald Trump, I know a lot of people don't like to say his name, but we should name names. When Donald Trump rode down that escalator, right, and announced that he was running for president based on a total assault on Mexicans who were trying to come to this country because NAFTA and other U.S. policies totally undermined their own life and their livelihoods, right? That's why there was such an increase. That's one of the reasons why there was such an increase in migration from Mexico. To say nothing of people in Guatemala who were facing, or Honduras, I'm sorry, I don't remember which one, maybe both now. The horrible impacts of the climate crisis, where their farms were failing, right? So they also had to leave, right? So Donald Trump took us to a new era, right? And we haven't gotten out of that yet. We are far from getting out of it, and I'm sorry to announce here, it could get worse. And that is a dilemma that we face, right? How do we deal with that in a way that allows us to tap into our despair about the moment and use that energy that we find there to say not only no to Donald Trump and Project 2025 and that whole thing, but how do we tap into all that to energize us to make sure that if Harris is in the White House, that there's no honeymoon period. There's no let's see what she does and what her administration does. We have got to be all out on not only Gaza and the West Bank and Lebanon, but on every single issue. Why does this country still not have a national health care plan? What is wrong with this country? That's just one thing, right? That's just one. You all have a list, right? So that's the bottom line to your question about despair is yes, we have it, right? I bet everybody in this room at some point in the day feels some despair. But let's not wallow in that, right? Let's acknowledge it and move on and build and build and build.
Professor Khalidi, I'll leave you with the honor of leaving us with some last thoughts on how to remain hopeful and overcome despair.
Yeah, well, I think Leslie sort of said it all. There's not much I can add to that. I go back to what I said earlier, which is you have to realize that the trajectory is always a long one. If you want to do anything worthwhile, the trajectory is a long one. You know, changing racist structures, that's going to happen like that? Inconceivable. Changing some of the things that you just mentioned changed. That took decades and decades and decades of work. And so that's the first thing. You can't despair because in the third or the second or the fifth decade of that work, you still haven't achieved what you want to achieve. And you have to take solace from the occasional victory. I mean, today, I was just told by my friend and Michael Smith that the International Criminal Court has issued warrants for the arrests of Benjamin Netanyahu. You can applaud. That's a small victory. That means that him and his war criminal secretary, Minister of War, I won't call him Minister of Defense, he's Minister of War, cannot go to a number of countries. Excellent. That's a small victory. People are dying as we speak as they bomb Lebanon and Gaza. But the fact that the world considers them war criminals and that there's a warrant for their arrest is something we should take comfort in. We are on the right side of history. Sooner or later, those structures of iniquity, of injustice, of dispossession have to come tumbling down. And it's not true that people don't believe in human rights. It's not true that international humanitarian law is not respected. It's not respected by the powers, by the United States government. But ordinary people understand those things. And it's partly our job to make sure that it's front and center. Every American politician is breaking the Leahy law. Those weapons, which are horrible things, by a U.S. law have to be used for self-defense. Killing 42,000 people is self-defense? It's grotesque. Every time they repeat automaton-like, Israel has the right to defend itself, what they're doing is defending themselves, because otherwise they should be prosecuted for violating US law, the Leahy law. We have to keep things like that. We have to keep things like that in the front of people's minds, because ordinary people actually already oppose this war by overwhelming majorities, not just here, in the world. All the big countries, everybody in all of the biggest countries in the world is against this war. And that's actually beginning to be the case even in the Western metropole for this Israeli project. In Germany, in Britain, in France, and in this country, public opinion is shifting in the right direction. That hasn't changed one government's position. 4 governments have slightly restricted their weapons sales to Israel. Slightly. No big effect. Canada, Netherlands, Great Britain, and Germany. Not enough. But it's a sign of the fact that the times actually are changing, and we have to take solace from these little shifts in the right direction, even as the mass slaughter continues, even as these arms industry, these huge industries that manufacture arms are making obscene profits. We have to keep the victories in mind. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Rex, for moderating this conversation. I wish we could go longer, but we're already slightly over time. So thank you, everyone, for hanging in with us. And thank you again to Rex, to Professor Khalidi, to Leslie for your incredible work and for sharing some of those thoughts with us here on stage.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we are not done just yet. So sorry we have you for just a couple minutes longer. This is a fundraiser. So next, I'd like to invite our Peace Action Fund of New York State board member, Joanne Robinson, to the stage to give a quick pitch, and then we'll go over some logistics for getting upstairs to our wonderful reception. We've got food and drink for those of you here in person, and we're almost there, so please bear with us. Great, and here comes Joanne. So I'll pass it to her. Joanne, please be quick.
Don't give me a hand. Give it to those students who were brave, who went to a university which teaches you critical thinking, but a university who didn't stand by them. But Peace Action is standing by its students. We did not tell them they could not stand. They used their own good common sense. Just as you are here this evening, using your own good common sense to support Peace Action. And in supporting them, you have given initial funding. But again, I ask, we need help. We have 16 college chapters. We have newsletters. And we are working to educate the youth, the college students. They are our peace ambassadors. You have trained them well, but you've got to continue training them by helping them, and helping them you can by supporting them by your gracious and your wonderful financial support. In the wonderful journal that Ashley Crowther, a young youth person who creates all these wonderful invitations and journals, you have been given the opportunity through an envelope and a pledge, which I can't find in here now, but a pledge card that says you are going to continue to help. And we have listened to people as they talked about Leslie, Cora Weiss, Judy Lerner, all of you out there who have made it possible to have programs like this to educate us. And then I want you to look to the right of you, the left of you, behind you, and in front of you. But there are not that many people of us who are here. And next year, you gotta build that grassroots movement, because without having everybody, we will not have peace. And we need to have peace. So I ask you, please bring out your pledges, open your hearts again, open your pocketbooks, and help us. We have students Jones and Sylvia Rodriguez Case, Tara Curry, Ashley Crothers, Mary Geisman, Aziz Dakan, who's not here, Margaret Engel, Carol Abrams, and of course, our own Sally Jones, who worked very hard. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So remember, look at your pledge envelopes, look at your peace pledge, and make a pledge that you will continue this work. And you listen to Professor Khalidi and the decades and decades and decades that Leslie Cagan has spent in giving her life. Do it, as she said. You had such enthusiasm with her. Give her your pocketbooks with that enthusiasm. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Joanne. As she said, this is a fundraiser. We've got the pledge envelopes. If you're joining online, there should be links to donate in the streaming description of the event. And upstairs, we'll also, as a fundraiser, be raffling off 7 keffiyehs that our board member, Colleen Moore, has recently brought back with her from a recent trip to the West Bank. Tickets for those will be $10 a piece, and the winners need to be present upstairs when we do the drawing. And please be sure to see a volunteer at our merchandise table to buy a raffle ticket and to also check out some of our really great PAFNIS merch. We also have Professor Khalidi's book, The 100 Years War on Palestine, that he might sign for you if you ask really nicely. Thank you. He says he will. You heard it here. And we also have our free Move the Money pens, which have a really great illustration of our astronomical military budget. They're a great talking piece. So join us upstairs for that and more. So I hope I've now gotten you all excited, and I see some people already walking out to join us at our cocktail hour upstairs. Thank you so much again, everyone, for joining us. Thank you to our fundraising committee for putting this event on. Thank you to Scandinavia House for having us and for helping handle the tech. And thank you so much. I'll see you all upstairs. Good night.